Hello, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today we have a solo episode, and I'm very excited to talk about a specific experiment I've learned a couple years ago, but I just recently resurfaced the experiment of Schrödinger's cat. And you may be asking, isn't that quantum physics? Like, how the hell is quantum physics going to relate to career or stress management? But it's such an interesting phenomenon. For those individuals that have not heard of this concept, it was first coined by Erwin Schrodinger, who didn't actually do the experiment, but he was trying to find a way to explain string theory and how things are a little bit more complex than what they seem in the surface. And in order to him to explain it, is if you put a cat inside a box and you put a mechanism in where it can potentially have 50% chance of killing the cat inside the box or not killing the cat. When you have the box and you close it and you put the mechanism in with the cat, you won't know whether the cat is alive or dead until you open the box. So with this concept, he's explaining that the cat is both dead and alive at the same time because our perception of the cat inside the box is unknown. So we won't really know what happens until the action of us opening the box, seeing inside, which then interrupts the cycle of the unknown and creates a definite answer. What this whole experiment is essentially explaining is the concept of superposition. So superposition is where we have things that can be in two states at the same time. So the cat can be both alive and dead. However, we won't know until something goes in and interrupts that state and makes it definite. So in this instance was opening the box, then we become aware that the cat is either alive or dead. If we never open the box, then that mystery is always going to be there, so that cat is going to, in theory, be in that dual state of both alive and dead until we figure out and somebody goes in there and intrudes that. So this whole thing of superposition is something that can really be applied in our everyday lives because we are so conditioned to think that we end up having everything in a very linear and in a singular circumstance. If I do this will happen. If I do this, that will happen. And that is not the case. A lot of our lives do live in this duality because every choice has a positive or negative consequence, and sometimes it has multiple. So based on our actions, we create reactions and consequences. And based on our lack of action, it can also cause certain consequences. So with that, when we are dealing with an insane amount of stress, we're dealing with an insane amount of anxiety, we're often fixated on the singular possible outcome of that choice. So I have to present tomorrow. I am very nervous. I have not practiced. I therefore will fail because I have not practiced my speech, and I'm going to make a fool out of myself, and it starts spiraling down into this whole negative. But that's the one singular outcome, one possible outcome that can come from that choice that you make. However, if you choose to study, even if it is last minute, and practice that presentation prior to that, even if it is for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever it may be, you will be more prepared for that presentation than if you choose to just spiral and do nothing. So then you create a duality of choices. So with that, if you're planning ahead, you can also think of, okay, if I make this choice, what are the possible outcomes that will happen? Versus if I don't do this choice, what are the possible outcomes that will happen? So our state is in a superposition state. So we have to constantly be seeing what are the different techniques, what are the different choices I really realistically have, instead of this one negative outcome that my brain is conditioned to think. One of the things that you have to constantly remember is our brains have a negative bias. We are conditioned through society, through culture, through social media, the people around us, to always think on the negative side. So if you have that in mind, you will always lean towards a negative outcome, then start thinking what are some possible ways that this outcome can go in an alternate route. Knowing that bias exists in our brain helps us because we can then see that it's not just one singular, but it's actually a duality of choices that we actually have. So I really want you to think and start doing some mindfulness exercise like reflections. You can do some blogs, you can journal, you can go on walks, and whatever it may be that helps you concentrate and really think things through. Whenever you're stressed, whenever you're burnt out, whenever you're having anxiety, know that is not your only option. You have multiple options of control that you can actually choose or fail to choose that will cause certain things in your life. So you have to constantly be remembering, okay, just because my circumstance seems dire doesn't mean that this is going to be my only route of my future. There's multiple different ways that this can actually go through. I want to give you another example so you can really understand this concept and it really does stick with you. So with that, let's just say that you are struggling with your stress, right? You're feeling this sense of hopelessness. You feel tired. You feel unmotivated to continue going to work. You just feel like you're stuck in this loop of waking up, going to work, feeling the sense of dread, not really enjoying what you're doing. You go home, you death scroll on TikTok, on Instagram, and you're not really paying attention to your surroundings. You stay up late, and then you start the cycle again. You're like, this is my life. This is where I'm at. Things are no longer going to work. This is just going to be like the end of me. Then this is my forever. However, by you listening to this podcast, by you going in and researching potential ways that you can stop the cycle, it starts creating a duality. Because there's a version of you that exists not knowing this knowledge, and there's a version of you that exists knowing this knowledge. A beautiful thing about the mind is that once you have learned something, it's hard for you to ignore it because you now know the knowledge of it. So now you're aware of the situation. So by you doing the research, by you learning the new concepts, you start branching that reality into two. And then you have another choice. Do I do something with this knowledge, or do I stay in the same situation I'm at in fear of not doing anything because things may never change? So you have two dualities. And based on that choice, you can even add more things that can branch the options that you have. You can get a coach like myself. You can get a therapist. You can get a psychiatrist. You can have an accountability buddy. There's multiple options that you can do to really enhance your options to help you take the road that's going to help the best. However, in order for us to do this, we do need to put the work in. We need to really dissect, peel the onion back, and see what is the circumstance that I'm in, what are possible outcomes that are affecting me in my decision-making process, my life, what are external focus of control, what are internal focus of control, and then really seeing what can I do to improve the life that I have, to be that version of myself that I want to be, to really dive in deep and see what I want and how can I get there. So I really hope that this concept of Schrödinger's cat helps you. It really gave me like a big perspective, and it helped me get out of my mental funk that I had. And I just wanted to share it with you and take this as the unicorn lesson of this week, that life is not singular. There's multiple options that you can do, whether you realize it or not. Sometimes we just have to dig in deeper, look at all of our surroundings, and really see our life lives in multiple versions of ourselves based on what the choices that we make. So let's start making the right choices that will benefit us, that will get us forward, and not just live in that constant cycle of my life is this way and it's always going to be that way, because it's not. You're only lying to yourself. So really do things that are going to benefit you. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening. As a reminder, episodes come out every Friday at 7 a.m. I appreciate you for coming on and listening to the episodes and leaving comments and following me on Instagram. I really do appreciate the little things that y'all say, and I always take suggestions. If there's something you want to see or something you want to hear, feel free to send me a message. But other than that, I hope everybody has a lovely day. Enjoy your Friday, and until next week.